Rosa the Beloved 111 by Hakjin Kim. In a cafeteria where only one table is occupied by a lady, Linda takes a seat looking around to find Brian. She sees Paul and Nancy get inside and Brian after them. Linda waves her hand to them and they all sit at the table. "Hello, my name is Paul Parker and this is Nancy, my daughter. I really appreciate your being here to talk," Paul says. "Hello, I'm Brian Miller. I'm wondering what we're here for. Linda wants to see me, so I didn't expect anyone. Anyway, I guess there's a serious matter to discuss," Brian says. Then Brian pays attention to Nancy because she looks like Rosa. But he ignores what he sees. When Paul begins to explain why he and Nancy would like to see Brian listens to Paul cautiously. As the story that Paul tells reaches what he has done for 2 years, Brian's face becomes grave. Meanwhile, Nancy recognizes Brian at a glance and sits quite still, dropping her eyes to avoid eye contact with Brian. In fact, Brian hasn't been involved in her life. He didn't go to the same college with her nor worked with her. He is the man who Nancy just met once by chance. She recalls the night of 18 years ago. Brian was on a business trip when he joined Nancy at the bar by accident. At that night, Nancy was extremely depressed by her husband, who had cheated on her, and she had beer more than she should have. She remembers that they talked a lot. Especially Nancy shared her unhappy marriage with him. But they both drank too much and Nancy blacked out. At dawn, Nancy woke up at a hotel, and she found Brian sleeping on the other bed in a twin room. She left the room quickly, feeling embarrassed. Up to this afternoon, Nancy has never thought of Brian, and even doesn't know his name. Glancing at Brian, Nancy tries to calm herself down, feeling grateful for his presence as Rosa's father, and mumbles, "What a coincidence to see him like this." Brian, with a serious look, stares at the floor when Paul finishes his talking, and he is silent for a few minutes. He seems to be shocked since he wasn't given any information by Linda. "Mr. Parker, first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. But I don't know what to say about such a bizarre story. I can't believe what I'm hearing. This is absurd, and how can we fix this situation? If I hear you properly, in a nutshell, you want Rosa back because you lost Helen and Rosa's DNA matches to that of Nancy. So you plan to file a paternity suit based on Rosa's DNA. If we don't agree with you." Brian's face flushes red with anger. "Mr. Miller, I didn't say right now. And Nancy wouldn't dare want Rosa in her family. I'd like to say that we apologize for bringing up this complicated issue. You must be confused and angry," Paul says. "And it's hard for us to talk about late Helen. We still love her too much and miss her every day." Brian doesn't respond to Paul and takes a deep breath. Suddenly, Nancy's face jumps to the eyes, so that Brian stares at Nancy to figure out if she is an acquaintance. In a minute, the conviction flashes across his mind that Nancy is just the woman Brian talked with through the night about 18 years ago. Brian mumbles to himself, "Oh boy, she gave birth to Rosa after that night. By the way, she really looks like Rosa. If Anne knows this, she's gonna be freaked out." Then Brian is wondering what if Rosa has his DNA. He shakes head thinking it's not likely because nothing happened that night. But he decides to keep Rosa as his daughter, no matter what Paul does, insisting on DNA stuff. "Then, Mr. Parker, did you ask the DNA testing agency to examine whether Rosa's DNA matches to Nancy's husband?" Brian asks. At this point, Nancy looks at Brian in the eyes and takes his suggestion with a pinch of salt, and she says, "Dad, I think he sounds right. We need to ask the agency to examine Kevin's DNA, and then we'd better discuss it further. Thank you so much, both of you. I hope we will find the best way to get along together." It takes a month to find Kevin, and Nancy asks him for DNA testing. The result comes out a week later that Rosa is exactly Nancy and Kevin's biological daughter. The result seems to disappoint Nancy a bit, who expected a slim chance. but it feels like she finished a big assignment. Since she didn't mean to hurt Miller's family from the beginning, Nancy brings Olivia and Paul together in Paul's study. Mom, Dad, Rosa is Kevin's child. But you know what? Brian isn't a stranger. I met Brian 18 years ago and we spent one night together, both drunk, and nothing happened. Funny enough, I wish to tell you Brian is Rosa's father. I know you may think I'm crazy. Nancy shrugs her shoulders. We understand you. You say Brian has nothing to do with Rosa. But he isn't Mr. Nobody to you, right? That's a big surprise. Anyway, but I'm glad to hear that news. I bet you made up your mind, right? We'll do whatever you say, Nancy, Paul says. Yes, I made up my mind. Brian isn't related with Rosa at all. But it's not that bad if he leaves with her. And I really don't want to hurt Anne. If she knows her real daughter doesn't exist on Earth, she'll go crazy without Rosa. I can't do that bad thing to her. If we tell the truth to Anne when we get Rosa back, she won't let it go as we wish. I hope all's well. So I want you both to tell Linda that nothing changes. And we'll stay as close friends. If you want an heir, you can make your money be placed in a trust fund for Rosa. Oh, Dad, do me a favor. Don't look at Rosa like you're her grandpa, please. You both can't help loving your only granddaughter, though, Nancy says. Paul and Olivia nod their heads at the same time, agreeing to Nancy, and Paul says, You're very thoughtful, him. Okay, we will stay as family friends. Well, fall is just around the corner. It means your mom's birthday is coming up soon. I'll throw a big birthday party for you, Olivia. We'll get together with the Millers and Linda. That's a great idea. I'll let Brian know what we talked about. And I hope Anne and Brian accept me as their friend. Oh, I'm so happy, Nancy says with a big smile. One morning in mid-September, when Rosa pulls her bike in the garage to go to school, she finds a red brand new sedan in the driveway. Dad, did you buy a new car? Rosa calls out Brian. No, it's yours. It's a surprise gift for you, Brian says, approaching Rosa. What? Oh, you bought it in secret, Anne runs out of the kitchen. What a nice car. I'm happy for you, Rosa. You know how to drive, right? Anne says. Sure, Mom. But today's not my birthday, huh? Dad, is your business going well? Rosa says and kisses on Brian's cheek. Thank you so much, Daddy. I have to leave now. I'll talk to you guys later. Rosa says, getting on her bike without knowing that gift is from Paul. In a fine evening, Rosa gets into her red sedan and sits in the driver's seat, while waiting for her parents and Linda to go together to Paul's house to attend Olivia's birthday party. She looks up at the sky and trees, feeling a crisp, gold-tinged autumn. Since she decided to focus on her study, she hasn't minded what Paul and Olivia were doing with Linda. And now she understands the whole thing. Being chased by her real grandparents, who tried to get her to listen to them, and Dina Issue and Nancy, who watched her at the library, and giving up the process to take her away from Anne. And becoming family friends with the Millers. The night when she was freaked at the subway station remains one of the memorable incidents in her life. She smiles at herself by feeling proud to be a sweet, innocent girl. In a few minutes, Linda, Brian, and Anne come to the car. Welcome to my Ansietta Polly, 3 blonde guys, Rosa shouts happily. Who is Ansietta Polly? Anne asks as soon as she sits in the back seat of the car. It's my car. I named it. Let's go, my Ansietta Polly, Rosa says with a smile and starts the car. Rosa sees Linda wink at her in the rearview mirror.